Hi everybody, I know this is a live, but if you don't show up live, don't worry. It's going to be in the news feed and it'll be in the units. This video is going to be in the unit for the 5 first things, and this one's called You. So it's a lot faster to be able to drop these live, even though you may not be live when I show them. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But the first thing that you want to get really clear, regardless of what your kids are doing for school or any sort of thing like that. By the way, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I'm using a Bluetooth and I'm not really sure if it's coming through clearly. So if you can hear me, can you let me know if you're on live? That'd be helpful. All right, so the first thing that you want to get straight is you. Anytime we're in crisis mode, we can't go out and be calm and peaceful and think straight for other people if we aren't calm and peaceful and thinking straight in our own mind and body. So we get clear with that first, all right? So this is going to be really short, but it's really powerful. You have 2 key questions, and then we're going to talk about what to get straight, okay? So the 2 key questions that you want to ask are, how do I feel? And apparently my kids are running around. How do I feel? And the second one is, what do I need? Okay? How do I feel? What do I need? These might sound really simple, but you'd be surprised how often we don't stop to ask these 2 questions. And the important part about asking these 2 questions is it's important not to censor your answers. So whatever comes up is what it is, and you just let it be that, okay? So how do I feel? Take a minute, close your eyes, try to think about how you feel right now, acknowledge it. There's no wrong answers. Do I feel sad? Do I feel tired? Do I feel angry? Do I feel happy? Do I feel nervous, anxious, all kinds of things? So I can't tell you how many times I ask this question, how do I feel? And when I'm really thinking about it carefully, the answer is, actually, I feel like I need to go to the bathroom. And I haven't been in a really long time. So let it be what it is. And then, excuse me just a second. Do you guys need something? Okay. And then the second one is, what do I need? What is it that you feel like you need? And it doesn't really matter whether or not you know how to get it, because really, all of a sudden my kids are inside in the kitchen. Great. So what I need can include things that you don't have the answer to, that you haven't figured out, that you don't know how they're going to be met. There's still needs. God's in charge of meeting our needs. We're not in charge of meeting our own needs. Our husbands aren't in charge of meeting our needs. We don't expect our kids to meet our needs. God meets our needs. Now, He meets them through different people, but that means we can acknowledge what the need is before we know how to meet it. So I encourage you to ask these 2 questions before you do anything else, all right? And then, if it's something you can go ahead and take care of fairly quickly, taking care of this step first is going to set you up to be able to take care of other people a lot more successfully. If it's not something that you can take care of immediately, then it's time to bring this to God and say, hey, this is how I feel, this is what I need, and I don't know how to get this need met. Please help me. This is where we ask for help, okay? So 2 key questions, and then the second thing that you need to do is to focus on what I call non-negotiables, okay? And how do we know what our non-negotiables are? This is going to require you doing a little bit of prep work to know what those things are, but once you've done this prep work, you'll be able to go back to this very quickly and see, hey, have I done the things today that I needed to? So let me explain what I mean by a non-negotiable. A non-negotiable is something that I absolutely have to do no matter what in order to love the other people around me well. A non-negotiable is something that I have to do no matter what in order to love the other people around me well. What do I mean by that? So different people have different non-negotiables that because we're all different people, different creatures, not different creatures, different humans with different personalities, different priorities. So these might be different for you. Now, if you've never figured out what these things are for you, a great way to do this is to brainstorm what they might be. And just give yourself about 60 seconds to figure out what your non-negotiables are, all right? So set a timer, go for 60 seconds, and just jot down what are those things that I have to do, that I feel like I have to do in order to be able to love other people well. So I'll give you some examples from my own life. Some that come up for me are things like Bible devotions, drinking water, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Another one for me is breakfast. Another one for me is some sort of movement during the day. Intentional movement. Another one might be, let's see, what else do I use? Journaling. Sometimes in different times of my life, I have felt like journaling was an important part of the day. Prayer might be one. Other times in my life, what's for dinner has been on my non-negotiables, depending on the stress level in my family and how important it is for me to know that ahead of time. And along with that, at one point, school prep was on my list of non-negotiables. You can put whatever you want, but there's a whole long list you could have here, right? So the key is to it's okay to brainstorm. Anything can go on the list, all right? And then once you've done that for a minute, 2 minutes, what we're looking for is what I call the MVP. The MVP, which is minimum viable product. What's the minimum that is absolutely required? Not what's the ideal. Like, I would love to spend an hour in my devotions every day. I'd love to get a gallon of water down my throat every day. I'd love to spend definitely 8 hours. I'd like to have a really solid breakfast. I'd like to do an hour workout every single day. That would be ideal, but that is not what we're talking about here. Okay, what we're talking about here is what is the absolute minimum that is necessary to love other people well. So I know that spending at least 5 minutes in my devotions is what is necessary. Okay, let me make this bigger. This does not erase well. A minimum of 5 minutes is what's absolutely necessary for me. I know that I really need 8 cups of water. I know that I can get by on 7 on a very consistent basis. These would be examples of the minimum, all right? I know that I need to have some sort of protein in my breakfast. I don't have to have a fancy breakfast, but I do have to have protein. Does that make sense? Movement is at least 15 minutes would be what I would consider absolutely necessary if I was going to choose movement, okay? So you get the idea. We're choosing what's the minimum amount, all right? And you have permission to do more than the minimum amount. That's okay. But we're trying to establish what that is because it's going to become part of our checklist. So we have our key things here, and then what we do is we say, okay, if I only got to pick 5, if I only got to pick 4, if I only got to pick 3, if I only got to pick, and you work your way down, okay? I encourage you to start out with just 3, because when we are feeling like we're in crisis, a lot of times we don't feel like we have time to do any of these because they don't involve fixing anything for anybody else. That's the way we a lot of times think. And so you want to pick, okay, what are my most important 3? So you might pick whatever you pick. I'll tell you what I'm picking right now. Currently, I'm picking devotions, I'm picking sleep, and I've been picking breakfast. Those are my 3 right now. It doesn't mean I can't do any of these others, but I know that these things are the most impactful. And so these become my non-negotiables. Have I had my devotion? Have I had 7 hours of sleep? And have I eaten breakfast? Coffee can be added to some people's list. You can put whatever your list. There's no right or wrong here, but be honest with yourself, because don't do ideals and don't do what you think other people think it ought to be. Okay? Because that's not, in the long run, that's not going to serve you well helping your family. So you pick out your non-negotiables, and so this becomes the 3rd question that you ask yourself. Have I done my non-negotiables? Okay? So have I done them? Have I done my non-negotiables? All right? So these are the 3 questions that you start off with anytime you're feeling like your kids are falling apart, your family's falling apart, everything in the house is going to hell in a handbasket. However that's hitting, these are your 3 questions you start off with every single time. And I encourage you to make this a practice. How do I feel? What do I need? Have I done my non-negotiables? And you ought to be able to immediately know what those 3 things are. 5 minutes of devotion, protein for breakfast, and 7 hours of sleep. And if I haven't, if there's a way to take care of those right away, I go ahead and okay, then that is the very next thing to do. So that's the first of the 5 first things that we do in our house for difficult times in order to be able to stay in control. So I hope this is helpful to you. I will jump back on a live in a little while and do number 2. And you can find this particular live later in the, I think I said in the 5 first things unit. Okay? Thanks for joining in, and have a good day.